welcome back. Apologies, delegates. Your attention, please. Welcome back. That's my happy face. Welcome back to conference. Apologies to those who can't get in the main hall. We really have the SEC bursting at the seams here in Glasgow for those watching across the country. So welcome back, everyone. And to kick off, we have Resolution 7 on the Social Union to be proposed by Andy Doig and seconded by Ian Shepherd. And Andy Doig is a candidate in the council elections this May.
Convener, fellow delegates, conference. I stand before conference as the great-grandson of a Yorkshire weaver who came to Scotland in 1866 looking for work and employment. And it's really quite ironic that this motion is sponsored by Kilbarchan branch. Kilbarchan is was one of the traditional weaving villages in the west of Scotland in the 18th and 19th century. So I mention this small part of family history just to underline the fact that we're all products, if you like. We're all children of the social union between Scotland and England, which has existed long before the Union of 1707 and will exist long after. We all have friends and relatives in England and across all the countries of the British Isles, and we share commercial, sporting, faith ties, which will continue. Indeed, not only will these social links, the social union, continue after independence, it will strengthen and prosper. For there will be forged on new foundations, as the resolution makes clear, of national respect, mutual cooperation, and the right to national self-determination. These are aspects which the Kilbarchan resolution underlines as fundamental. These are the ways in which we will conduct the new social union. For the new Scotland we seek, to echo a phrase used by our first MP, Dr. Robert McIntyre, when he drafted the first manifesto of the post-war SNP, the new Scotland we seek, the independent Scotland we seek, the aspirational and better Scotland we seek, will also lead to a new Britain, a Britain composed of equal partners who will share both a common past and look to a closer future. Be in no mistake, independence will deliver not only a new Scotland, but a new Britain in which all the peoples of the British Isles will be able to share and celebrate our shared social heritage. Now, there's many models for this kind of future cooperation. You've got the relationship between the Czech Republic and Slovakia, between the Nordic Council and the Scandinavian countries, and you've got the British-Irish Council, the latter in which our SNP government plays a full and comprehensive part. Now, it's to the credit of the SNP that its positive social democratic vision for Scotland and how it will conduct its social relationships with the rest of the British Isles after independence has actually long predated even devolution. In 1976, long before the British-Irish Council was born or even conceived in the minds of UK civil servants, the late great SNP leader Billy Wolfe proposed the creation of an association of British states as a model for future cooperation after independence. Scottish independence is not about border posts, but about building nations with self-respect. Scottish independence is not about divorce, it's about marriage enrichment. It's about a stronger social union between equal partners without the disadvantages of the political union. And this approach will be at the heart of that new relationship and understanding. Academics and political scientists like Joe Eric Merkins, who've got no party political axe to grind, recognise that too, as when he stated in 2002, and I quote, that Scottish independence would herald a new era of rapprochement with the rest of the UK. Now, the English Elizabethan theologian and poet John Donne once famously wrote, "No man is an island entire of itself, all man must be part of the main." that the Scotland and the England we seek is one where both nations will be, as Don said, be part of the main, and all the stronger for that, where we can cooperate on matters of common concern, but also have our own vote and our own voice in the world and international community. To conclude, Convener, if a new Scotland will lead to a new Britain, as it assuredly will, the effect of a new Scotland will mean a new England too. Scottish independence will allow a new dynamic to emerge, to encourage a sense of Englishness which is at ease with itself, outward-looking and forward-thinking. That debate currently only takes place within the pages of The Guardian and other select journals, but with the advent of Scottish independence, civic England will begin to see a new and progressive role for itself, and that will be the benefit to us all. Thank you.
And Ian Shepherd to be followed by David Berry, who will move the remit back. And can I ask the movers of the topical Resolution 3 to submit cards, please? Ian Shepherd.
Conference, I am here before you to tell you that with political independence will come not only a better and stronger Scotland, but also a more healthy, equal and beneficial social union between the constituent nations of the British Isles. However, first let me tell you what I mean when I say social union. I mean the situation of free trade between the nations and between the citizens in the nations. I mean the countless friendships and familial ties that exist between the nations of these isles. I mean the shared heritage and values which have been produced not only from over 300 years of political union, but from times long before that as well. I mean cooperation and mutual respect between all of the nations of these isles. Delegates, these are things that shall not be swept away with the end of the political union, and indeed they cannot, for we cannot rewrite our shared history. Our intention is not to change the past, but to forge a future, a better future for Scotland and for these isles. Delegates, the Unionists talk of border posts and trade restrictions. I sometimes wonder if they live in a different world, where nation states are unable to cooperate on equal terms, but regardless, their vision for the future is dark and incorrect. The new Scotland that we are forging will not be one of aggressive and isolationist foreign policy, but rather a force for good in the world, promoting equality, fairness and cooperation. This being the case, we must say that a new Scotland will not rip itself away from England, Ireland or Wales, but rather will enter a new partnership of equals rather than the unequal partnership which exists today. Conference, we must also look at one of the key benefits of political independence coupled with social union, the competition of policy and ideas. The birth of a new Scotland will allow for different policy initiatives and aims to be instituted. And this will, of course, allow for both of the new nations on these isles to observe the policy of the other and see what worked, what went wrong, and how things can be done differently. This will inevitably lead to a better situation for the people of these isles, and that their governments will be able to synthesise better policies based on what has worked in the other nations, and thus create a more prosperous society for all of the people of these isles. Delegates, this is a resolution for the future, that better future we all aspire to, not just for us, but for the people of Scotland, England, Ireland and Wales. Delegates, I urge you to support the motion. Thank you.
And just before Dave Berry begins, we will require a seconder to the remit back, if someone would second from the floor. Okay, we have a seconder. You're saved.
Thank you for that.
Dave Berry to
Dave
move
Berry,
the remit
elected
back.
member. This motion, I'm grateful to Kilbarchan Branch because fundamentally I support it wholeheartedly, and I'm grateful for Andy and Ian speaking so well towards it. And in fact, the first paragraph I have no difficulties with at all. I think the social union is going to be vital for the health and well-being of both the English and the Scots. And I speak as someone who's half English myself. My dad was actually from Westminster, but not the political bit. There was a working class area just behind the Tate Gallery, and so I feel myself torn between the two countries. I am a Scot by choice, and I think a lot of other people are too. And I want a very good relationship between the two, the social union. But there is a key issue here, Because in the second paragraph we talk about between Scotland and the remaining countries of the United Kingdom. And it's this United Kingdom that I have difficulty with, because think about it. The United Kingdom we're discussing here is part of the 1801 treaty between the countries of the British Isles and Ireland, which was modified in 1922 to reduce it to Northern Ireland. But all of that hangs on the 1707 treaty, which gave a single state under the United Kingdom of Great Britain. And if one of those two partners is no longer part of that state, the United Kingdom doesn't exist, in my view. And therefore, we cannot be talking about the remainder of the United Kingdom, because there is no such thing if Scotland is not part of it. Therefore, I would argue that we either don't pass this because we are setting a precedent that the United Kingdom exists without us, or we need to take the second line of the second paragraph from between Scotland down to Kingdom in the third line. And so it would read, Conference look forward to the continuation of the social union and to a new and equal relationship between all the constituent countries of the British Isles, which is absolutely fine, that's a geographic context. But if we can't modify it like that, then I would argue we need to remit it back. Thank you.
Okay, we have a great level of interest in this resolution and a huge number of cards. I'll call as many people as I possibly can. Can I first of all have to speak in favour of the resolution Tasmina Ahmed Sheikh, to be followed by Christine Graham. And Tasmina is a member of the National Executive Committee.
Thank you, Convener. Good afternoon, Conference. Welcome to Glasgow from a resident of this great city. It is with both pleasure and pride that I speak for this motion today. What exciting times this city and indeed this country face. In as little as 8 weeks, Glasgow will have the opportunity to finally rid this city of 5 long, hard decades of Labour rule. We shall all continue to work diligently and tirelessly to ensure that we deliver to the people of Glasgow what they have deserved for so very long. An administration with a real and honest sense of responsibility for the welfare of every man, woman and child in this city. Finally attaining for the people of Glasgow social justice and equality of opportunity, an SNP administration. We have a very real duty to secure the social welfare of the people of this city and Scotland. Then we, the people of Scotland, will have our referendum on independence. It is, after all, for us to determine the future of our nation. We have an astuteness, an aptitude, and an assertiveness that has made us responsible, responsive, and strong. Conference, let us secure for our children one of the greatest gifts we could ever give them: the roots of responsibility and the wings of independence. As an independent nation, we shall have the potential for much more democracy, with the capacity and the will to develop different kinds of solutions to be more progressive in our government. Positive vision with policies based on specific circumstances, sensitive to our needs and values. I look forward to the continuation of the social union between Scotland and the remaining countries of the United Kingdom. A social union to replace the current political union. We can and we shall retain the separateness and integrity of our own selves whilst we continue with shared bonds. Our bonds are and shall remain institutional, practical, economic and personal. Those of friends, friends able to work together in many areas where we share common values and interests. whilst enabling also the securing of improved governance as respected equals with different priorities. There is no doubt that we have a shared inheritance in culture, which includes the cultures of so many magnificently diverse communities in Scotland. Let us continue this social union between many spirits, with the sole purpose of improving the lives of all, and not just the select few. Scotland has led the way in so many areas of policy development, to include the smoking ban and minimum pricing for alcohol. We can set precedents. We can address policy challenges fairly, and these in turn can be adapted by other jurisdictions of these islands according to their own circumstances. We can lead the way with innovation, integrity, and above all, respect. Respect for the remaining countries of the United Kingdom and the constituent countries of the British Isles. Let us inspire in other nations a new form of self-determination. Let us inspire our children, our young people, their families and their communities to follow a new democratic politics, enabling the potential for radical social and economic change. Conference, it's time.
And now Christine Graham, MSP, to be followed by Pete Wisher, MP.
Good afternoon, Conference. This is Christine Graham, born in Burton-on-Trent, circa... I'll tell you when I was born. Anyway, I'm standing here as the product of a very happy social union from an English mother and a Scots father, like many other people in here. So I get very, very cross when I hear anybody berating this parliament and say, berating this, I'm in the wrong place, berating this conference and berating this party and saying that we are anti-English. My mother campaigned for 40 years for Scotland's independence. There are many English people in this party and not English people in this party who are very much for Scotland's independence. One of the things that are said... One of the things that is said is, what will happen the day after independence? Will there be cooperation? Well, you see, I represent a Borders constituency, as does Paul Wheelhouse. We already have cross-border cooperation. If you're in need of a care home and you live in Roxburgh, Berwickshire, or you live in Tweedy Electric and Lauderdale, you may have to go into Berwickshire. It's paid for by the Scottish Government at Scottish rates. If you're in Berwickshire and you're required to come over into Scotland for treatment in the Borders General Hospital, you're treated there for free. So what we're seeing is it's already operational in the Scottish Borders. And out of interest, it was Scottish Borders Council that voted for minimum unit pricing against all the wrong things that are being said by the Conservative Party then, and have now repented, that somehow White Van Man would be in the borders going across and bringing over alcohol. Indeed, it was Borders Council who supported minimum unit pricing. So they had no concerns about that. And I have a final point to make that I think is of interest here. For 13 times, Berwick has moved backwards and forwards between Scotland and England. About 2 years ago, they voted to come back into Scotland. You can bet their boots, with a yes vote in the referendum, they'll be first in the queue to become part of an independent Scotland.
Pete Wisher to speak in favour of the resolution, to be followed by Duncan Ross.
You know, Conference, a while ago, I remember playing to sellout audiences like this. I never sort of expected to be doing the same as a Member of Parliament. Can I just say that the social union is a vitally important and crucial part of who we are as Scots. It's what we share with the rest of the people and the nations of the British Isles. It's something that we value and cherish. And it's something that with independence we will continue to invest in and to grow. We've been in this incredible cultural relationship and journey for the past 300 years. We have shared these cultural institutions and we've helped create them. And you know this, Conference, this social union belongs to us as passionate Scottish nationalists as much as it belongs to the most hardened unionists from the shires of England. It's what unites us and it's what we have achieved together in partnership over the years. It's everything from the Industrial Revolution to standing together in the Second World War to our great rock and pop bands of recent decades. When we become independent, we will be severing our political union with the rest of the United Kingdom. We will be doing absolutely nothing about the cultural union, which we will continue to grow and develop. The only difference is that it'll be better. Because as the movers of this resolution said, we will be coming to this arrangement and partnership with a feeling of mutual respect, of real partnership, and we will be able to make sure that the social union develops and grows, and it will be strengthened by Scottish independence. Independence will bring a great new benefit to the social union, and we'll be creating new cross-border institutions. And it's all right to call them British, because we will still be sharing the British Isles. Now, I'm from Perth, in the northern part of Great Britain. I'm as much British as somebody from Stockholm is Scandinavian. People in our nation still feel British, and that's all right. After independence, that will still be there, and we will still have that social union. And if some people relate to that social union as Britishness, that's all right for us, and it's absolutely fine that that should continue. We want to create a new political relationship because we want to grow our own economy, have the powers to make our own responsibilities and take those steps ourselves in the world. We are not the separatists that the unionists try to maintain. We have no issues with our British inheritance, our social union, and we will continue to develop and grow that. Conference, it's about inclusion. We are the new inclusivists, if that's what you want to refer it to. We have nothing to do with the separation that the unionists try to maintain. It's about recognising who we are, where we've come from, and where we're going in the future, and we will go there in unity with all the people of the British Isles. Thank you very much.
And Duncan Ross, elected member, to be followed by Alison Hewlis.
Thank you very much, Derek. Conference, I stand here as convener of Glasgow Kelvin constituency, the host constituency, and I welcome you to it very warmly indeed. And I remind you that the host constituency stall is just outside there, so please go and buy raffle tickets and so on before I speak. I thank Kilbarchan Branch for bringing this resolution to us because there is a message, and Pete made the point, there's a very clear message that we need to send out from this hall, and that message is that we are not separatists. We inspire to have the good folk of England as our neighbours, as we currently do, and we aspire to build a new and a better relationship of mutual trust and respect with them and with many others. It's not the SNP that threatens border posts. It's not the SNP that threatens to withdraw access to use of sterling if that's what we decide we wish to do. And it's not the SNP that tries to bully the Scottish people into keeping nuclear weapons on the River Clyde. Our vision, Conference, is a very simple one, and it's on the walls beside us here. It's about Scotland's future in Scotland's hands. We will make decisions on the basis of what's good for the people of this nation. And sometimes those decisions will be about working with friends and colleagues elsewhere. If it's about building electricity connectors across the North Sea, that's fine. If it's about joining the Nordic Council, that's fine. There are many great challenges we have to address and things we need to do. We can only do them in cooperation with others. There are challenges we need to meet around climate justice, around climate change, about international peace and reconciliation. And I refuse to believe that Scotland has nothing to say about these things. And I absolutely refuse to accept that we have nothing to add to the campaigns to address those challenges. So what we're about is building a new Scotland, a confident Scotland, a forward-looking Scotland, an aspirational Scotland. We are for things, we're not against them. We are here to build, to take our future into Scotland's hands and to build those relationships with many other nations. Let's take our place in the international community of nations. Let's speak with a clear and confident Scots voice. And let's do it respecting our neighbours, let's do it with our neighbours, let's do it inspiring our neighbours if that's what we're able to do. But let's do it as Scots, and let's do it building that social relationship. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Duncan. And now Alison Hewlis, Councillor Hewlis, who of course is standing for election again here in Glasgow City Council.
Thank you, Convener.
To be followed by Ali Kaur, who will be our final speaker before we turn to the summing up. Alison.
Thank you. On the doorsteps, more rarely now than before, but occasionally it happens, someone will say, "Oh, you're from the SNP, but I'm English." So I tell them about my family, my English husband, my English in-laws who live in Derby, who, of course, I have a great relationship with. And it's meeting the people on the doorsteps that allows us to dispel these myths that the unionists like to try and perpetuate, because we're not that kind of party. And we have many English members, many members from all around these islands and all around Europe even. And when we're out there on the doorstep, we can dispel those myths and tell people that the social union will stay, that we will still be friends, that we will still be good neighbours, that nothing actually in that respect will change. Independence is about building those good relationships, about building a more mature relationships between our countries. And I think it's important to tell as many people that as we can do, and to get out on as many doorsteps, to chat to as many of your work colleagues, to as many of your friends, because it is important, and it's about how we build our coalition towards independence. Conference, as a great lyricist once said, neighbours should be there for one another, because that's when good neighbours become good friends. Support the resolution.
And last but not least, Alec Orr, elect member.
Thank you, Derek, and good afternoon, Conference. Fellow Nationalists, nearly a year on from our historic victory at the last year's parliamentary elections, a victory few could have dreamt of, we now boast a parliamentary majority that paves the way for a referendum on Scottish independence. It's worth pausing, however, to consider how we got to this stage, to within touching distance of independence for our nation. Fellow Nationalists, it's often easy to forget that we owe much of the position we are currently in now to those who went before, paving the way for independence. Mahatma Gandhi, the great fighter for Indian independence, famously said, "First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win." And how closely Conference, does that resemble the history of our party since its foundation in 1934? Laughed at initially as a group of eccentrics, pilloried as extremists, but then with Winnie Ewan's historic victory in Hamilton in 1967 and the discovery of the black gold of North Sea oil in the 1970s, viewed as a serious and credible threat. The euphoria of 1974 with the delivery of 11 MPs, the agony of coming so close to in 1979 to the delivery of an assembly, and the rather bleaker years of the 1980s, to the establishment of a Scottish Parliament finally in 1997, the delivery of a minority SNP administration in 2007, and then an overall majority in 2011 via a voting system designed to prevent any one party, especially the SNP, gaining a majority. Over the years, we've lost so many good people who would have been amazed at the position of the party today, whom the position we're in would have been beyond their wildest dreams. Margaret Ewing, Billy Wolfe, Alan McCartney, individuals too numerous to mention. But as it was with Bruce at Bannockburn and the success in that battle brought by the wee folk coming over the hill, it's those unsung heroes we must never forget, those within the branches and constituencies who nurtured and kept the freedom flame alive, especially during the bleaker times. Many of them lived in an age in which being a nationalist potentially threatened one's very livelihood, and this was something they kept secret, many to their very graves. There will be challenging times ahead, make no bones about it. Scare stories we've all become accustomed to, and which through years of practice we are ready to deal with. They'll become frenzied and manic as desperation sets in. Passport controls at the border, left defenceless and open to terrorist attack, mild and dire poverty without the succour of the British state, pestilence, famine, a visitation from the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and finally, to beat it all, the inability to watch EastEnders and Coronation Street on our TVs. But we're privileged Conference to be part of the independence generation, living in an age which will see the independence of our nation, which will witness the retention of the social and economic union with what remains of the UK, but will see the cutting of the umbilical cord of the political union with London. Independence is, of course, not a means in itself, as Nicola Sturgeon highlighted last week, but the means to build a better Scotland, a better nation which uses its vast wealth, both in terms of its people and its natural resources, to eradicate poverty, to deliver a more socially just country, and remove the abomination of Trident from the Clyde. And as you go around the doors campaigning in the local government elections, as you go around the doors campaigning for independence in the forthcoming referendum campaign, Spare a thought for those who went before, who are not alive to witness independence, but on whose shoulders we now stand, in whose footsteps we walk, and remember how privileged we are to witness what they never will, a prize greater than no other, the freedom of our nation. Thank you.